So we got hit pretty hard with Hurricane Helene, whatever. Not as bad as some people, but we were without power for 12 days, without internet for 14. We had a lot of trees coming down on the property, just uprooting or cracking in half, and there was just so much rain it just made the roots soft and everything just got pushed over because the leaves are all still on the trees. But for our prepping scenarios, it's really great to run ideas in your mind and stuff, but it's rare that you get a good chance to actually test those things out and go, did we actually prepare for everything we thought we did? Or did things turn out a little weird? And so I just wanted this video to be kind of learnings for us actually going through 12 days of decent preparedness, whatever. So tip number one, have a generator. This seems really obvious, but this is what everything else revolved around. Especially if you have a well. If you don't have a generator, you also don't have water, so your problem's just doubled. For a lot of people, a generator is an expense, or it's an inconvenience, or they're worried about the safety with the carbon monoxide, or it's noisy or whatever. But you don't necessarily need some gonzo generator that'll power the whole neighborhood and you have to build a slab for. Like, you can get something much smaller. There's lots of other options. We went with this, it's just a 2000 watt WEN inverter generator. It has an echo mode on it that allowed us to run it pretty low when we didn't need a lot. The great thing about this generator is that it is small. I mean, I could pick this thing up, it has a handle, I can pick it up with one hand. So can most of my kids. We can move it around. It has 2000 watts output, which is just enough that it covered everything we needed. We were powering a fridge and a large freezer, a crock pot, more on that later, and we were using it to charge all of our battery packs, inverters, and things. And the great thing about it did that all on, it ran for about 14 hours a day, and it did it all on 2 gallons of gas a day, which if you're using a big generator, you're using at least 7 or 8 gallons of gas a day, if not 10. And at 12 days, say you just use 5 a day, at 12 days, you're talking 60 gallons of gas, which means you got to have 12 jerry cans stored. And that's a lot. That's going to be a lot of overhead for you to run that huge generator. And most of the power that is going to output every day, you're probably not even capturing. For us with a smaller generator, we used almost all of the output that it was giving us every day. So there wasn't a whole lot of waste. Also, you can't assume that you can get more gas. Oh, I'm just going to have like 2 jerry cans on hand and then I'll just go keep getting more gas. You can't assume that, because the gas stations around where we were, they were mostly out of gas. When they would get gas, it would be one tanker would come in and they'd get a load of diesel, or they'd get a load of 93 octane or something. And then there was like a 10 or 20 gallon limit depending on the gas station, and it was cash only. And you had to wait in a multi-hour line just to get your gas. So don't put yourself through that. Buy a more efficient generator, something, size it down to your needs, and then just use what you need. And then you don't have to go to the gas station and all that kind of crazy thing. But that does bring me to my second point, which is have extra gas. Because even if you're only running through 2 gallons a day, most people honestly don't even have a 5 gallon jerry can sitting around to even get them through the first 2.5 days. So have, I would say, a minimum 4 5 gallon cans of gas sitting in your garage or wherever it is, and just cycle them through your cars. Just keep rotating the gas from that into your car, refill them, park them in your garage. That way the gas stays fresh, but you always have a decent supply of gas on hand. Because if you think about it, you're trying to run a generator, you're also trying to drive your cars, potentially out here, you're definitely running a chainsaw when the doo-doo strikes the whirling fan blades. you are going to be running a chainsaw and you're going to need a lot of gas. So have gas stored that is fresh and usable. Tip 3, have chainsaws and have lots of extra stuff for your chainsaws. Because if you live in a tree-dense ecosystem like we do, you are going to spend the first several days just burning through chainsaw, barn chain oil, gas for your chainsaw, 2-cycle oil. You're going to go through an awful lot of it. We spent the first day, 8 hours, running 2 chainsaws for 8 straight hours. And we ran through, good night, it was like over 5 gallons of gas just in chainsaws for our first day. And that continued for another 7 days. So you're going to run out real quick of bar and chain oil and 2-cycle oil and extra chains for your chainsaw. If you don't have extra chains and you don't quite sharpen the chain right and it starts cutting curved and you start messing your bar up, like, things can go downhill really quickly if you don't keep a good sharp chain on your chainsaw. And when there's no place to go to get new chains, or there's no place to get them sharpened, no place to get your chainsaw serviced, you're going to need to have all that stuff ready to go beforehand. So make sure your chainsaw is tuned up, make sure everything's running well, and have extra chains, bar and chain oil. We went through, the first couple days we went through easily 2 gallons of bar and chain oil. You need more than you think. It's like the old grandmother recipe instructions. Add water more than you think. Tip 4, have cash on hand. If you were able to chainsaw out of your area or whatever, or ATV through the woods or whatever you had to do, and you finally got to a gas station or a grocery store and they don't have internet, even if they have power, it's going to be cash only. It was kind of tough seeing at the grocery store. You know, I stood in line just to kind of see what people were talking about and see how things were working and see what, how well stocked the grocery store was. We actually didn't need anything, but I just stood in line and saw multiple times people come up and they were told, sorry, it's cash only. And they went away pretty either upset or crying or just really disappointed, because the ATMs are all cleared out. The banks aren't open. There's no way to get cash. And if you need something and you don't have cash, that's a problem. But also have small denomination bills, like 5, 10, 20s. If all you have is a whole bunch of hundreds and you go to a place and they're not accepting hundreds or 50s even because they can't make change for it, then it's like having nothing. So have a lot of small denomination things, or you're in more serious SHTF kind of scenarios, you're going to have a harder time if you don't have small denominations, because you're going to overpay for everything constantly. So tip 5, have a simple propane cook stove of some variety, and extra propane for it. Hot meals get really important by about day 3. And if you don't have some kind of a way to cook, you're going to start getting really depressed, or you're going to be driving 30 miles to try to find someplace with power, just so you can have a hot meal. So have some way to cook. Got some basic stuff here with there's a simple propane cook stove. Just takes these little, you basically just attach these things onto the end of this, and you can cook with these little 1-pound propane things. A single burner, it's pretty simple. And then probably they make little adapters for here that you can refill these little 1-pound canisters from a 20-pound canister. I would do that because these are way cheaper per pound than these, but you're gonna go through a bunch of these with like a simple propane cook stove. If you have a turkey fryer or something like that too, that can work, to hook it straight up to here and just cook everything off of that. But have some way to cook. You're gonna need it. 12 days without a hot meal is not fun. You can't eat that much cereal and lunch meat. It's nope. So tip number 6, have water. Have water backup and a way to filter it. This wasn't as much of an issue for us because we had water the entire time, but we knew several people who didn't because they were on wells and or the whole city water. All the counties around us all lost all of their water. So we were fortunate in that respect, but have water in a way to filter it. For filtration, I mean, just something as simple as like these little Life Straw filters or Sawyer filters, something like that. Just have a number of those on hand because you really don't want to be drinking unsafe water. And if you're on a boil advisory or something like that, you really don't want to have to boil everything you have to drink and let it cool. That is just not fun, especially if you don't have a cook stove. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So have some sort of filtration system. As far as a water source for us, we've got a number of these around our property, but they're just giant IBC totes that are plumbed into the gutter system. And at the bottom of them, they just have a simple hose, and they're plumbed together. I don't even know if you could see that. They're plumbed together, so they fill together, and we have a large amount of running water. I mean, this is just one of 4 different placements that I have around the house, and some of them we use to water livestock and things like that. But there's actually another video about one of them in the garden. But yeah, they make it so that you actually have large amounts of not potable water, but water that you can at least use for flushing toilets, and maybe pour it through a t-shirt, something like that, and then run it through a Berkey filter or your Life Straws or something like that so that you can filter out any pathogens. And pro tip, if you're trying to conserve water and you're trying to flush toilets, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Tip 7, have lots of lighting. You're gonna need it. Lots of flashlights, lanterns, whatever. I was amazed the first night how dark it was. And it's like, well, duh, of course it's dark. Like, there's no power. But it was amazingly frustrating how we have 6 kids, and going from room to room and trying to manage everybody when it got dark, it became extremely frustrating. And we had a lot of flashlights and lanterns, but it never seemed to be enough. So have lots of flashlights, lots of lanterns, rechargeables, because we also ended up giving a lot of them to neighbors because a lot of neighbors had no flashlights. So have a lot of them. Amazon, you can buy a whole bunch of them in packs of 2. They're fairly cheap. They're rechargeable. Just get like 5 or 6 boxes. You might need it. Tip 8, keep a crock pot next to your sink full of hot water. Hook it into your generator and just turn that thing on low, and for 10 watts of power, you can keep hot water all day, this was a brilliant idea of my wife's because she was frustrated at not having water for cleaning up or for washing dishes and that sort of thing. And it occurred to her she could just keep water in a crock pot hot all day whenever we wanted it. And then we just pull the sort of the hose off the sink and refill the crock pot whenever we needed to. So that was an amazing lifesaver to have hot water all the time. And if you have a generator, right, drawing an extra 10 watts for a crock pot is nothing. But the hot water is amazing. It makes a serious difference in your life. Also, she used it to heat up food as well. We would put things in mason jars, like chili or even slices of pizza. We rolled them up into mason jars and shoved them, obviously with the lid on, into the hot water sitting in the crock pot. And after a little while, it was hot and we could kind of take that stuff out and eat it whenever we wanted to. So it's kind of the English pudding method. They would put jars, seal up jars, and put them in hot water baths. So that's where we got that idea from. Actually, a lot of our ideas for what we were doing during this came from watching a lot of the BBC farm series, like the Victorian Farm and Edwardian Farm and Tudor Monastery Farm and Tales from the Green Valley and wartime fun. Like, it was amazing how much that stuff came back to us. Those are favorites in our family. Tip 9, have a system for doing laundry. This is probably a surprise for most people when they're thinking about preps. Laundry. We had a number of people tell us that they were trying to do laundry, and I don't think how most people realize how much brute force is involved in doing laundry. When you actually get a tub and you fill it with water and soap, and you grab some sort of stick and start plunging that laundry, it takes about 600 plunges just to get the first batch clean. And then you need to run it through 2 rinse cycles after that, where you're doing another 600 plunges each. So we divided it up with the kids. Each kid would just go outside and take 100 plunges in between their school subjects and things. And that's kind of how we got it done. But it's a lot of brute force. And then once you actually get everything clean, it's also, if you don't have good equipment, it's also a lot of brute force, because we ended up using, we had a wash tub that we put the soap in, and we'd use a plunging stick, but you can really use just grab any stick from the woods that has some forks on it. You could use it to plunge the laundry. And then once it was all rinsed, we'd run it through a wringer, and that wringer saves an enormous amount of time and pain in your hands, because if you've ever tried to wring out wet laundry, you can only do a couple of items of clothing before your hands are just really, really raw. And the wringer saves an enormous amount of pain. If you don't have a wringer, you can always go out in the woods to a sapling and throw the one end of the clothes around the sapling, so you have 2 ends in a U shape, and then just grab another stick and bind it up in the ends you're holding and start twisting. It's the old medieval wringing post idea, and you use that to wring out your laundry. That does work, and it will save your hands, but the wringer is better if you can get your hands on one. And then obviously you need some way to dry the clothes. So if you have clothesline in advance, that'd be great. Those are good just in general for saving a lot of money on your dryer electric costs. But if you don't have something like that, you can always spread your clothes out on bushes or something like that to try to get it dry, or hang it up in open windows to try to let the breeze dry some of it. But you'll need some form of way to dry your clothes. Tip 10, have some portable power station, battery packs, inverters, whatever you want to call them. We had a number of these. I have several of these Jackery units, and we have this Ucatel here, and then a number of these little small units. They made a huge difference, not just in how many of our own freezers we could actually keep going, because we have 3 freezers and a fridge, but also in how many of our neighbors' freezers we could keep going, which I had not thought about. But we would basically take our big generator and charge these inverters, these power stations, and cycle them out with neighbors so that they could keep their freezers going. And it saved a lot of deer meat. It saved a number of people losing their entire freezer, which was an awful lot of money worth of meat. So something like this is about 1,000 watts. This is 2,000. We did find one of the things with something like this. It took about all day to charge. It charges at a maximum of 150 watts. This sucker will charge at 1,500 watts. So I could charge this thing this is 2,000 watts, and I could charge this thing in a much shorter amount of time off the generator. So unless you're using the solar options for these things, if you're running them straight off a power plug to a generator, make sure you can charge it quickly, because especially if you're trying to cycle them out with neighbors or people at church or whatever, you're going to need something that can actually charge quickly, and then you can hand it off. Also, just pick up a number of these. These are fairly cheap. They're inexpensive. They've got like a little solar panel on them. They take forever to charge off solar, but you can charge them off the generator. And they make a big difference just being able to hand these things out almost like candy to neighbors or people at church who just need to keep their phones charged. During the whole thing, we could still get text messages. Internet was dead, but text messages would go through periodically. So there were ways to keep in contact with people, and just having a way to keep your phone charged is a big deal. And it's surprising how many people don't have something like this to keep their phones charged. Tip 11, have compassion. Some people have utterly zero preps, and they can get overwhelmed really quickly. So do what you can to alleviate the sufferings of others. And that includes before the prepper scenario, before the hurricane hits, before the tornadoes hit, before the earthquake. Prepare now, so that you'll be ready to help in the future. Even things like providing batteries for a shut-in old lady so that she can run her radio, so that she could sit in the dark all day and feel like there's somebody there with her. It's a small thing, but just keep your eyes open to the needs that are out there. Don't just be concerned with you or your own family. Do what it takes to prepare so that you can have your eyes open to wider needs. It was actually pretty discouraging the first day when we were trying to cut our way out of our area, and there was only one way out, and it was completely blocked with a whole nest of trees, and my family spent 8 hours clearing that blockage, and not a single person stopped to help. We had an enormous number of young guys pull up in their pickup trucks and take pictures and then back right up and drive away, and they all went home because there was no other way out of the community. So it was a little discouraging seeing how many people were not helping. So don't be that guy, especially if you bought a 4-wheel drive pickup truck and you can't even help. So don't be that guy. Tip 12, find a wife who's not afraid to go off-grid for an extended period of time and keep a good attitude. I don't think they have these available on Amazon, so I might have to put a different type of link in the description. But yeah, Emily here, she kept us in 3 hot meals a day and kept the house clean, did all the laundry with the kids, and got the kids through a lot of their schooling, and all while I was out trying to generally clear roads and trying to help other people. So a good wife is hard to come by. So if you can find one of those, snap her up. She talks more than this normally.
I will say this is not something I want to keep up indefinitely, but actually it was kind of fun doing laundry with the kids and just figuring out how to cook outside. It was kind of a nice change, honestly. I didn't mind it.
Okay, real quick, bonus tips. If you go to the store and they're rationing milk, or if they're out of milk, a lot of times they'll have a lot of half and half. Just get that, because they won't ration it. And then you could take it home, cut it by like 25%. It's basically milk. It tastes better than milk. Bonus tip 2, get a French press. Get a metal one. The glass ones break too quickly. But if you're trying to heat water, most people don't realize how much of a power suck most coffee machines are. But if you can just boil water and use that in a French press, it's much more efficient. Bonus tip 3, go check on your neighbors, see if they have spoiled food in their freezers, and they probably will, and help them clean it out and feed it to your hogs or your chickens or whatever that is, because they will actually probably appreciate you helping them clean out their freezers, which are nasty, and your animals will appreciate it for the free food. Bonus tip 4, if you're doing homeschool or something like that and you can download lessons ahead of time, if you know the storm's coming, download a bunch of lessons. Or if you just download a bunch of audiobooks or videos or whatever you need to, download a bunch of stuff ahead of time, because you don't know when the power's going to come back on, and you might need some stuff to do. That was really helpful for us because we could actually download some things ahead of time, and we didn't get as far behind on homeschool as we would have otherwise. Bonus tip 5, get a bunch of lighters. It's surprising how many people need lighters. when things go sideways, to light propane stoves or light wood stove fires or something like that. But you can, good night, you can get them at Sam's Club in bulk packs, which is what we do. I've got an entire crate full of those things. So we just handed those out like candy as well. But stick lighters are really helpful. Bonus tip 6, have some sort of medical supplies on hand. Make sure you've got backups for medications, things like that. None of this was an issue for us. We didn't have any injuries or medication issues. But have a med kit, have things available, especially if you're running a chainsaw, have tourniquets with you, that kind of thing. So I hope that was helpful. You're almost guaranteed in, this coming year to have a power outage, and you're probably guaranteed in the next decade to have a 7-day or more power outage. So it's good to prepare for this sort of thing as just a regular, normal course of life kind of stuff. You don't have to be a wild and woolly doomsday prepper in order to put some things back and get a generator and that sort of thing. This is just sort of the inevitable power outage, the inevitable disruption to our way of life. So just prepare. That way you can be a blessing not only to your own family, but you can be a blessing to others as well. Hope this was helpful. Thanks. Take care.